Hello, friends. Today we're going to be reading chapters 7 and 8 of Midnight on the Moon. Chapter 7, The Moon Man. Jack's heart nearly stopped. He could hear Annie talking. Hi, she said. We come in peace. There was silence. Then Jack heard Annie say, Thank you. I have to help my brother up now. A moment later, Annie rolled Jack onto his back. She grabbed his hand and pulled him up. Thanks, said Jack once he was standing. The Moon Man was a few feet away. His face was hidden by a metal visor. He looked like a spaceman, a huge spaceman, with a giant tank on his back. It was as big as a refrigerator. That's a jetpack, said Jack. I've seen pictures of future astronauts flying with those things. It's like a mini spaceship, right? The Moon Man didn't answer. I don't think he can hear us, said Annie. He's not hooked up to our radio. Oh, right, said Jack. I'll write him a message. Good idea, said Annie. Jack pulled out his notebook and pencil. He wrote, We're Jack and Annie. We come in peace from America. Who are you? Jack handed the notebook and his pencil to the Moon Man. They looked tiny in his big hands. Well, look at how big he is. The Moon Man looked down at the message. He looked at the tiny pencil. Then he turned the notebook over. Jack and Annie watched as the Moon Man put the pencil to the paper. He was writing something very carefully. Finally, he gave the notebook back to Jack. Jack and Annie stared at the marks. And there's all the marks. They look like stars. Stars, said Annie. He drew stars. Maybe it's a space map, said Jack. Space map, said Annie. Hey, Jack, map starts with M. Oh, wow, said Jack. This must be the fourth M thing. Let's ask him what his map means, said Annie. She turned around. We'll never know now, she said. Why? Jack looked up from the map. That's why, Annie pointed. The Moon Man was flying over the mountains. Thanks, Annie cried. Chapter 8. One star to another. Who was that guy? Said Jack. What does his map mean? I don't know, said Annie, but let's see if it works. Jack took a deep breath. Yeah, we'd better hurry back. I think I'm running out of air. It feels harder to breathe. For me too, said Annie. Go slow, don't breathe too much, said Jack. He and Annie took long, floating steps towards the moon base. Jack held his breath as if he were underwater. By the time they got to the white dome, he was ready to burst. Annie pushed a button beside the huge door. It slid open. They hurried into the airlock. The door closed behind them and the door to the hallway opened. Jack opened the visor of his helmet. He took a long, deep breath and let it out. Ah. Let's get out of these suits, said Annie. Good idea. Jack was dying to free his arms and legs. As they moved clumsily into the spacesuit storeroom, Jack felt heavy again. He and Annie unlocked each other's helmets, gloves, and boots and pulled everything off. Then they stepped out of their bulky suits. Whew, Jack said. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. It was great to be free, even if he no longer felt as light as a feather. Hurry, Peanut's waiting, said Annie. She led the way down the steps to the bright landing chamber. Yay, she said softly. Jack was relieved to see this treehouse was still there. Soon they'd be heading home. He couldn't wait. Jack and Annie crawled through the treehouse window. We're back, Peanut, said Annie. Squeak. Peanut ran to the letter M. We missed you, said Annie. She patted the mouse's head. We met a moon man. Sorry, Peanut, but you have to move, said Jack. We have to put the map on the M. Annie gently lifted the mouse off the M. Jack tore the star map out of his notebook. He placed it onto the M next to the mammoth bone, the mango, and the moonstone. He sighed, then sat back on his heels. Hand me the Pennsylvania book, he said. They needed the Pennsylvania book to get back home. There was silence. Jack turned and looked at Annie. It's not working, Jack, she said. The book's not here. What? Was the map the wrong thing? They looked around the treehouse. It's definitely not here, said Annie. Oh no, Jack's heart sank. He picked up the star map and stared at it. Squeak, squeak! Peanut jumped out of Annie's arms and scurried back to the letter M. I've got an idea, said Jack. He reached into his pack and took out his pencil. What are you doing? Said Annie. You know how to draw a constellation, said Jack. You connect all the stars. What happens if we try that? He drew a line from one star to another. He kept drawing until all the stars were connected. Let me see. Jack held the paper out so they could both study it. It looks like A mouse, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. See that mouse with its ears, its belly, and its tail? Is there such a thing as a mouse constellation? Said Annie. I don't think so, said Jack. Squeak! Annie and Jack looked at Peanut. She was standing on the M. Oh, wow, Jack, Annie whispered. I think I know what the fourth thing is. Jack grinned. Me too, he said. It's a mouse, they said together. Squeak, squeak. Maybe the spell is Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse, said Annie. Jack touched each M thing in turn as he whispered, Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse. Let's say it over and over and see what happens, said Annie. Together they chanted, Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse. Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse. Suddenly a bright light filled the treehouse. The light got brighter and brighter and brighter. The brightness was blinding and whirling. The air spun with brightness. Then everything was clear. Peanut the mouse was gone, and Morgan Le Fay stood before Jack and Annie. What an exciting place to stop.